Hi, I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. So we're doing another Get Ready With Me, yay! And today we're actually going to be an article, today we're going to be an article. Today we're going to be discussing an article that I kind of came across by accident. So a lot of what I read is regarding, fat activism, body positivity, health, that kind of stuff. Those are kind of the fields that I'm interested in, hence the videos. And so that's kind of what my recommended news page kind of gives me. And I came across this, I think it's an older article, but I'm going to interspace this video of me putting on my fill beat with segments from the actual article that I'll just be narrating out loud. So if that's a little jarring, do let me know. I think I've done this once before, but I'm trying it out for context. So let me know if it turns out well. Yeah, let's get into it. Just so you guys know, once more, my mirror is right here. And so if I'm not looking directly at the camera, that's why. I'll try and make sure that I look up as much as I can, but I have to look at myself in the mirror. I am very narcissistic and my image is very important to me. By now, body positivity is arguably mainstream. Most people have heard some iteration of it or have seen the hashtags on social media. On the surface, you might believe that it's about self-love and body acceptance, but this current interpretation has limits. Limits against body size, shape, color, and many other aspects of a person's identity. And these limits exist because hashtag body positivity has largely forgotten its political roots from fat acceptance. Fat acceptance, which started in 1960s as the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, has been around through different waves and forms for about 50 years. Currently, fat acceptance is a social justice movement aiming to make body culture more inclusive and diverse in all its forms. But here's the truth. Body positivity first helped me want to change the way I viewed my body. It gave me hope that it would be okay to do that. It wasn't until I noticed that hashtag body positivity influencers made me feel inadequate, like my body was too much to really be okay, that I started to question whether or not I belonged here. So I read through this whole article and I want you guys to kind of go and read it as well and let me know what you guys think down below about it, because I'm a little bit conflicted, right? I'm a little conflicted on honestly a lot of the body positivity stuff, mostly because I understand where the movement stems from. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You will never see me come on here and talk about how fat activism is not necessary to a certain degree, because I do know that fat people get discriminated against, right? I myself have faced some of that discrimination. I also really understand why people would want to do something about it, right? Just because you failed a diet or because you're heavier or, anything like that doesn't mean that you are less worthy of kindness, of affection, of help, of all the things that a thin person would be entitled to, right? All the same consideration. So it's not fair when you are discriminated against for no reason. And you are discriminated against. When you are a heavier person, there are certain prejudices that you face that I think a thin person doesn't. And there's proof of this too. They've done studies. So you're not going to hear me ever really dispute that, right? That said, I do believe that I think it goes a little too far, right? I think I said that I don't think that I believe in the need for fat activism. I meant that I do think there's a need for body positivity. And I do think there's a need for having some changes made so that people who are in a fatter body, there's a social movement so that people who are in a fatter body are not discriminated against. But at the same time, it's like giving an inch and taking a mile, right? Like me saying, I understand where you're coming from in regards to this one thing, all of a sudden becomes people saying, well, what about this? That's also discrimination. What about that? That's also discrimination. Discrimination means something. There's a definition for it. And it doesn't apply to every inconvenience that a fat person may feel in their life. And that's kind of my biggest issue with the fat acceptance community, is that anything that inconveniences them or that they don't like is automatically fat phobic. It's automatically bad. And then there's also a big portion of it that's science denial, which is also my other really big problem with it. But on the face of it, body positivity, at least, I can get behind. By the way, the foundation I am using is the Born This Way, the Too Faced Born This Way Absolute Perfection foundation. It's oil-free. I'm very ambivalent on this. It's fine. I've had it for a little bit, so I'm gonna use it up, but I don't really support Too Faced anymore as a company in the wake of the whole Nikki Tutorials thing, and also their quality has just been so atrocious recently. So I'm using my favorite Erase Paste Concealer in number 2 medium. So the first thing I want to talk about in this article is the fact that they talk about how body positivity has limitations, and the limitations are based on like size, color, everything, right? I don't think so. I understand that maybe when it comes to like Instagram and stuff like that, the people you see at the forefront of it aren't always maybe what you would think, right? They aren't, 400-pound black queer individuals. So I understand what they mean by that. But I've said before that when something becomes more mainstream, it automatically becomes whiter and thinner. And the reason for that is that when something becomes more mainstream, when people who are not necessarily part of those communities become aware that there is a problem and they feel that they agree, they want to help, right? So you have allies like who want to actually help and want to make this message heard. They will use their celebrity status, they will use their influence, and they'll try and push a lot of the messages that you have out in front of the public. And unfortunately, a lot of those mainstream celebrities are white and thin and cis. It's the way of the world. Maybe in the future you will have different celebrities, right? Maybe they won't be white and cis and thin. But right now, that's what we've got. And so when you've got somebody who is helping you spread your message, they are going to use their popularity to do it. And so their names are going to be the ones that are going to get attached. And because they are the famous people, they're the ones who are going to get talked about. That's why you have Jamila Jamil in the news all the time. And also, you do want to keep in mind that a lot of the people who are the biggest advocates of body positivity, fat activism, they are still, right, the most visible ones are still like heavier people, or they're like minorities, which is what I've always been told by most fat activists is this the point, right? Like they've said that body positivity and fat phobia essentially has its roots in racism, and therefore, it's for people in marginalized communities. So you've got like Jamila Jamil, who might not be thin, but she, both from her own recollection, she says that she has a disease, a debilitating disease, and she's also a woman of color. Right? So she is from a minority group and she's speaking for you. Then you've got people like Lizzo, who might be straight, but she's both, she's a bigger lady and she's both a bigger lady and she is, black. So you've got these people, you've got people who are part of these marginalized groups talking about it. So you can't say that there is like only, thin and white and cis, right? Because you've got people of all ends of the spectrum who are talking about it pretty publicly. And then Tess Holliday, Virgie Tovar, both of them would be in the mix too. I mean, Virgie might be straight, but she's definitely a woman of color, and she's a heavier lady. And then you've got Tess Holliday, who has claimed to be pansexual. I shouldn't say claim, who's come out as pansexual. And she is also a heavier lady, though she is white. So you've got a lot of people who are kind of at like the cross sections of this movement. So I don't think I agree that it has limitations. They do speak for fat activism, but they also speak for body positivity. And that's through their own choice, right? Body positivity has I wouldn't say forgotten its root. It's evolved from its original point, right? Body positivity started essentially, I'm going to actually do that later. The powder I'm using, by the way, is the Maybelline Shine Free Loose Powder in Light 01. I actually don't think this is entirely that one powder. It's like an amalgamation of like a bunch of different powders that I have left over that I've sort of poured into here and mixed. And then when it runs out, I have like a bunch of powders. I'm not very picky on powders. So I think that body positivity has sort of evolved out of the fat acceptance movement. So I think I said it before, back in the 60s, the fat acceptance movement was started by a gentleman who saw the way that his wife was treated, and he created the National Association for the Advancement of Fat People, I think it was. And from there, you got the HAES, the Health at Every Size movement. And from the Health at Every Size, you got fat acceptance, and you got, body positivity later on down the line. Now, I think the reason why we have body positivity is because there needed to be a wider umbrella, right? There's a lot of people who are maybe not fat, who don't identify as fat, who don't fall into the category of fat, who might just be average or a little overweight or even just slightly into the obese category, who don't look it, who are very muscular, who don't necessarily conform to the notion of, like a fat activist, because they don't fall into that field, but they still need body positivity. There could be somebody who has a particularly skinny build, right? Like in men, who wants to be buffer and fitter. He needs body positivity. There could be somebody out there who is, very petite, and they wish they were tall and gorgeous, like Tyra Banks says. They need body positivity, right? There's people, who've had children, babies, and it leaves permanent marks on their bodies, like stretch marks. They need body positivity. So you can't come here and say that, well, body positivity is not, it's not a big enough category, because I actually think the problem that a lot of people experience with body positivity is that it's too big, and therefore the message is a little bit watered down. But it also essentially is a movement where everybody should have a say and everybody is invited to, because it's essentially just become a movement where people should feel accepted for whatever form they come in. And I think that's great. And that's why there is the separate umbrella of fat activism, right? So that if you want to just focus on that aspect of body positivity, you can align yourself with that group and you can work in there. But to kick people out and to say that, well, it's actually excluding us, when in reality what it's done is that it's just become bigger, the tent has become bigger, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's a fair assessment to make. I'm using Anastasia Beverly Hills singles. I bought these a really long time ago, and I actually really like the Anastasia Beverly Hills singles. This is, I think, cream soda, and then Birkin and Morocco and Henna. They're really gorgeous eyeshadows. I have a bunch of them. I really, really like them, but they're really expensive. I would not recommend buying them again. I was an idiot who spent my money when she didn't have to. If you really do want to buy single eyeshadows, invest in Sydney Grace eyeshadows. They're phenomenal. I think that's the biggest issue for me when it comes to people talking about how they don't feel that body positivity goes far enough. Because everything that I have seen from body positivity, it's that, sorry about the shaking, it's essentially just fat activists saying, I don't get to feel like I'm the people that they're advocating for the most, and therefore I'm being discriminated against, because I'm the one who's faced the most amount of oppression. And I don't think that's fair. I think that body positivity has grown past the need for it to just be about one group for one thing. And I think that's a great thing. One of the biggest tenets of the fat acceptance movement is that diet culture sucks and diet culture affects everybody. And now you have a movement here that wants to accept everybody, and all of a sudden that's an issue. Anyone can have negative experiences or emotions around their body, but it isn't the same as systematic discrimination fat bodies face. The feeling of being constantly left out or judged for your body size isn't the same as not loving your skin or feeling uncomfortable in your body. They're both valid, just not the same, because the automatic respect society gives thin bodies doesn't exist for fat people. And the discrimination gets stronger as the bodies get larger. So this is a tactic that I've actually seen a lot of people from the body positivity movement utilize, and it really, really upsets me. I'm now using Morocco basically to deepen my crease and just sort of like build a V shape. And if you've got like hooded eyes the way that I do, what I recommend is find where your crease is. So for me, my crease is like right there, and you want to go just slightly above it. So I'm just going slightly above where my crease is so that when my eyes open, you can actually see the color. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that you get the light color up here, you get the color shimmer on the lids, and then everything else, all the transition and everything gets hidden, and it looks really stark sometimes. So I just say just go a little bit above so that you can see that color. I'm just sort of carving out the shape now. I'll go back in and buff it out in a second. They tend to minimize a lot about how a thinner person or how a person who is maybe not the most obese feels when they talk about their body struggle. So I've said before, I have like a disproportionately larger lower body. And it's something that causes me a not insignificant amount of discomfort. You know, it's something that I am very self-conscious about. It's something that I am pretty like skeptical of when it comes to like my beauty or whatever. It does cause me a lot of self-doubt and it does upset me, but I'm not the heaviest person, right? I'm not like I said, I generally, like at my heaviest, I was like 224, and I was considered obese, and now I'm like under the obese category. I'm considered overweight, but it's still like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't really look the way that you would expect a person who is my weight to look, because I don't carry a lot of my weight in my upper body, right? I have very broad shoulders, but, and I have a little bit of the chicken flappies, as you guys know, but outside of that, I don't really carry a lot of my weight in my upper body. And my face is just naturally round. No matter what weight I am, my face is always going to be round. You should look at the rest of my family. So it's like, I know my lower body is larger, and I know it causes me a disproportionate amount of grief. I know it upsets me. I know that it is a sensitive topic for me, but I don't maybe suffer in the same way that a lot of people who are maybe 400 pounds do. Does that mean that I should not be part of this community anymore? Because that's the feeling that I'm getting. Because I am not the most oppressed, I am not the most marginalized body, all of a sudden my pain means a lot less, right? And she says as much. She says that your minor rolls and, you know, skin folds are not the same thing as somebody who is being actively discriminated against. Well, yes and no, because I might not be the extremity to what you're talking about, but this isn't the oppression Olympics. You don't get a gold medal for being the most oppressed person. What I have sucks incredibly for me. My pain should not be minimized because there's other people suffering things as well. And you don't know. There could be somebody out there who's 500 pounds and perfectly confident in how they look and perfectly happy and comfortable, and they don't suffer any negative ill effects, right? Maybe they're in a job like IT or something where they're working from home and they don't have to go in and nobody really interacts with them face to face, and so they don't really have to worry about being judged from the outside. Maybe they're, you know, they don't care what people say about them because they're that self-assured and that self-confident. That's fantastic for them. But you can't say that despite all that they are the people who deserve the most amount of consideration because they are heavier than I am, right? That shouldn't be what you use as a metric to talk about whether or not somebody deserves to be part of the community, whether or not somebody has the right to talk about it, whether or not somebody has suffered, has been affected by diet culture. But essentially, that's what you're saying right now. You're saying that because you are thinner, because you are skinnier, you are not affected as much, and therefore shut up. Your pain is not important. And I think that's a really toxic message, and that's the reason why body positivity is so much more popular than fat activism is because you push people out like that, is because you minimize their pain. Me not loving my skin is, I think, just as awful, just as toxic, just as harmful as me thinking that I am not worthy of respect because I weigh 400 pounds. Me not loving the way my stomach folds is just as awful and just as harmful to my psychology as, you know, me not like my stomach hanging over. It doesn't matter what the imperfections are. All that matters is the perception, and you don't know my lived experience, and you cannot make that judgment call. Some fat influencers will feel pressure to prove their health by talking about their blood test results, showing themselves eating a salad, or talking about their exercise routine in order to preemptively respond to the questions of, but health? In other words, despite body size or appearance not being a good measure of health, society holds higher expectations for fat people to be a good fatty. So a lot of people will talk about body size as a metric for health. And you are kind of correct, right? Body size is not the only metric for health. If you're looking at somebody and they're like give or take within the average spectrum, you cannot look at them and say, well, that person is obviously extremely unhealthy. I'm now putting henna, the shiny orangey, sparkly, coppery color onto my lids. It's beautiful. I love this color. You cannot have that be the only determining factor. But I think that is when somebody falls within a regular range, right? If somebody is slightly overweight or even slightly into the obese category, you cannot judge whether or not they're unhealthy. I mean, I can't, right? I am not a doctor. But if a doctor checks your weight and he says, hey, your weight is in the unhealthy category, maybe you might want to listen to them because they've gone to medical school. This is literally their job. When you get to the point where you are, say, 600 pounds or 700 pounds or 400 pounds even, at that point, you don't have to be a medical expert to look at somebody and say, yeah, that's not a healthy person. Because like I've said before, I'm not going to distinguish between metabolic health and psychological health and all the other different forms of health, because all of those health essentially just boils down to you, right? Qualifying one part and saying I'm metabolically healthy when your psychological health is like abysmal because of your weight, that's still not you being healthy, right? I look at somebody who is 400 pounds. I might not be able to say what is wrong with them, but I can definitely say, yeah, there's something wrong. Because nobody eats themselves to 400 pounds. That's not a thing that well-balanced, happy individuals do. That speaks to a deeper issue there. Now, what the deeper issue is, that you got to go to a doctor for. As Dr. House once said, if you don't tell them what's wrong, they won't pay you. So I can't tell you what the issue is, but there's definitely an issue, because if there wasn't, you wouldn't be in the state that you are now. If you are 400 pounds, it doesn't matter what all of your current test results, your health results, all of that says, because it's just a matter of time before you get sick. Evidence has shown again and again and again that people who are considered metabolically healthy now don't remain so going forward if their weight is extremely is on the one end of extreme, right? Whether they're extremely thin or they're extremely heavy. I'm using the color Dipped in Gold by Anastasia. This is not an advertisement for their products. I just happen to have a lot of them. There was a phase in my life where I was, as much as you can stand, I suppose, any makeup company. I stand them. I would buy anything they came out with short of lipsticks, because I don't wear a lot of those. But any face product, eye product, colored product, for the most part, that they came out with, I would buy. And these are all from my time then, and now I feel like an idiot. So people who are metabolically healthy now don't always remain so in the future. And we've seen that in study after study after study, right? Morbid obesity has been linked to a variety of different illnesses, everything from hypertension to cancer. So saying that you're metabolically healthy now means absolutely nothing to me. You can't look at somebody and judge whether or not they're metabolically healthy, but you can definitely look at somebody and go, that person's not going to stay healthy. And honestly, I think that is fair, right? I think if I look at somebody who is 400 pounds and I think to myself, that is not a healthy person, I might not be 100% right then, but I will be in the future. And I don't genuinely think that distinction matters all that much. Next, I am using Bikini Bottom in the Safiya, Nygaard, and ColourPop collection. I'll be putting that. I like to use this as a cream blush. It really does not work for me as a it does not work for me as a lipstick. It looks very atrocious on me, but it looks phenomenal on my cheeks. Despite the fact that body size or appearance not being good measures of health, society holds higher expectations for fat people to be a good fatty. As a dietitian, people are less likely to take me seriously than thinner dietitians. My abilities and knowledge are in question, both implicitly and explicitly, because of my body size. Clients and other professionals alike have questioned my ability to provide care and have decided not to work with me. I'm sorry that that has happened to you. I'm sorry that there's people who don't want to work with you because you're fat. I really do sympathize with you. Like I said, I'm never going to come on here and say that, fat phobia and fat bias is not a real thing, because it definitely is a real thing. It just isn't as widespread as everyone makes it out to be. And it also isn't something that should give you blanket coverage from leading an unhealthy life. That's me carving up my jaw because, moon-faced gals here. I do, however, also understand where the people who did not want to work with her were coming from. Were they wrong? Absolutely. But I get it, right? Say I go to an accountant and I find out through Facebook or through friends and family or whatever that this accountant actually has managed to somehow lose all of his money in poor managing of his own finances and is currently completely broke. Would I trust this accountant with my money? Probably not, right? While it might not be accurate that he would apply the same practices to me and my money as he did to his and his money, a person would not be wrong in assuming that, hey, if he knew how to do better, why isn't he doing better? If he knew how to eat better, why isn't he eating better? And that's, I think, a fair thing for somebody to think. Once more, if you go to a mechanic and you find out they haven't been able to fix their own busted, junky car and it's just been sitting there rotting slowly, you might be hesitant to give him your car. And I think this is the same principle that applies here. Does it suck? 100%. But, I see where these people are coming from. Their assessment might not be correct. There might be deeper reasons, but that doesn't mean that the calculus they did in their head to decide whether or not they wanted to trust you with something that is both not just an arduous and difficult process, but it is also an expensive one. I don't think that's unfair of them. This is what I talked about before, right? Like metabolic health versus actual health. And the idea of health at every size. You can have healthy behaviors at every size. You can try and be healthy at every size, but you can't actually be healthy at every size. It's not possible, because there are certain things, like if you are 700 pounds and you cannot move, it does not matter what your charts say. You are not healthy. And then on top of that, I've mentioned this before in a video before, but I'm going to repeat myself until I'm blue in the face or people understand me, whichever happens first. I think it's going to be the former rather than the latter. But say that, you end up getting a bad knee and you need a knee replacement at an earlier age because you were very, very overweight your entire life and now have messed up your knees. And oh my God, I did not blend this up here at all. Okay. So because you did not work out and lose weight, your knees now have taken the brunt of your obesity or your unhealthy lifestyle, and now they're shot and they need to be replaced. That's not a metric that would play into whether or not you're metabolically healthy, because technically you're still metabolically healthy. And yes, even thin people will need knee replacements every once in a while, but it's a significantly higher damage that your knees are going to take as compared to a thin person's. And also, did you guys know that knee replacements actually only have a lifespan of 25 years, I think? I think that's what I read. So if you get them really early, when you're younger, and you need to do it again, that's twice you're going to have to do the operation, as opposed to somebody who's thinner who might only have to do it once because their knees that they were born with, kept steady for 50 years of their life. But that's not a metric that plays into whether or not you are metabolically healthy, right? You can still be technically metabolically healthy while needing a knee replacement because your knees gave out due to your obesity. I'm using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow Pomade in medium brown. I don't like this. I actually don't like this product. It's fine for filming because you guys only see me through the camera and the lights really reduce the intensity of the makeup that I put on. But a lot of times in real life, this will come across as Sharpie brows, and I'm not a big fan of it. But that being said, I spent money on it and I'm incredibly cheap, so I don't like throwing things away. Look how much I've used this up. I am so proud of myself. It's like, I don't know if you guys can get the depth of it, but it's actually like mostly gone. There's just like a little bit left now. I'm hopefully going to use this up in a few years. Maybe, I don't know. I'm hopeful that it, like by like February or something, it'll be gone maybe. And it is drying out a lot, so I might have to throw it out before then even, which I'd be okay with, to be frank, but I can't get rid of it now when it's working. Anyway, so I don't understand why fat activism, why fat activists and intuitive eating advocates push this idea of metabolic health so much when it is not a good indicator of actual health. I mean, I would say it's a far inferior indicator of health than even the BMI is. And we all know how much every fat activist hates the BMI scale. And once more, I just want to point something out really fast, that a lot of fat activists will talk about how, you know, it doesn't account for people who are super muscular. It doesn't account for pregnant people, the BMI scale, I mean. And that's absolutely true. The BMI scale does not. A pregnant woman would come up as being obese. But here's the funny thing about both pregnancy and people who are extremely muscular and actually cause the BMI scale to like tip in the wrong direction. If you've got like 50 extra pounds of muscle on your body, that's still not good for you. It's still going to do a number on your knees and ankles. It's still going to cause your heart to have the stress. It's still going to make it difficult for you to work out. If you've ever seen super muscular, super well-built athletes, like from those like physique shows and whatnot, they'll like lumber up on stage and they have difficulty breathing because of their muscle mass. So no, the BMI scale is not wrong. They're unhealthy. They're just unhealthy in a different way. While the keyboard health police and their unsolicited advice hurt both thin and fat people, their comments will incite a different kind of shame and stigma for fat people. Thin people get more of a pass on health comments, while fat people are often diagnosed on pictures alone, assumed to have a variety of health conditions. This translates off-screen and into doctors' offices too. Fat people are told to lose weight for just about any health concerns, whereas thin people are often more likely to receive medical care. I've said this now in videos before, but once more, repeating myself till I'm blue in the face, or I guess orange in the face. Doctors have a harder time diagnosing obese people. They do, right? Part of it is obviously there are an older generation of doctors who do see diet and like failure to diet as a moral failing. I'm not going to discount that. But there is also an entire younger generation of doctors, some of whom are not very experienced, who might look at a fat person and simply not have the ability to diagnose them. It's much harder to check if there's issues with your spine if you can't access a person's spine because of the amount of fat on their body. It's much harder to get a clear picture of what's happening in their uterus when the amount of fat you have around your stomach actually is keeping you from getting an accurate picture on an ultrasound. It's much harder to diagnose a patient when you can't fit them into a CAT scan. It's much harder to diagnose a patient when you can't fit them into an MRI. It's much harder to distinguish the reason for pain, generalized pain in certain areas of the body, when weight is a compounding factor. So yes, I'm sure that there are doctors who are absolutely assholes, but you also want to keep in mind that some doctors are not being assholes. They're trying to make diagnosing you easier. When somebody comes to you, right, and they say, hey, this is what's going wrong with me, but there's 18 different reasons what it could be, the best that you can do is start by process of elimination, right? Well, let's run a few blood tests and rule that out. Let's have you do this particular sort of lab and see if that, that will give us any information. And why don't you try losing weight as well and see if that resolves the issue? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think not telling you that would be doing you a major disservice. Discrimination and fat phobia is harmful to each and every one of us. When kids in 3rd grade have already thought negatively about their weight or have already attempted weight loss, when they live in a world that only shows thin or average bodies next to words like healthy and good, and when the word fat gets used as a negative feeling. And when media doesn't show fat bodies at all, it further marginalizes as well as discomfort with the fat bodies. This study that they're presenting here is actually extremely disingenuous to use in this context. I'm not sure if they meant it to be or they just misread the study or what. So I'm going to tell you because I actually followed the breadcrumbs and I looked at this study because I was curious, right? This study was conducted on 2 middle income schools, just 2, by the way, and it surveyed everybody from grades 3 to grade 6. There is a huge difference between 3rd graders and 6th graders. If you remember, 6th grade is around the time when hormones start peaking and we all became collectively more neurotic and self-conscious, right? Part of that is the hormones. You cannot blame that on anything else other than that. And part of it is, of course, that that's when people become judgmental assholes a little bit too. So there's, a little bit of that too. Middle schoolers are incredibly mean. So by lumping in both 3rd graders and 6th graders and then just presenting the information that the way that they have in this article gives you a very inaccurate picture. Second of all, middle income students were interviewed. And I don't know if you guys know this, but obesity is a lot more prevalent among people who are in a lower socioeconomic status. So maybe talk to people who are most affected by this before you give such a rash and snap judgment, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the study. I do think it's a little bit narrow in its scope, but that doesn't mean that the study in itself is bad. I think that the way that they're using it in this article is extremely problematic. But all I mean to say is that this is not the slam dunk that they want it to be if you look at it for longer than like 3 seconds and you're not squinting your eyes. As long as we believe that change and acceptance is solely up to the individual, like the pursuit of weight loss, we are setting them up for failure. A person can only be so resilient against social rejection, biased beliefs, and limited practices alone. If the body positivity is going to do what it was always supposed to do, it needs to include fat acceptance. It needs to include those in marginalized bodies and bodies that are not culturally accepted now. Fat acceptance circles center bodies because all bodies are not treated equally in our everyday spaces. Medical offices, movies and TV characters, clothing brands, and availability. Dating apps, airplanes, restaurants, to name a few. The shift has started with brands like Dove and Ari, and even stores like Madewell and Aphrodite. The shift has started with brands like Dove and Ari, even stores like Madewell and Anthropology that are becoming more inclusive. Lizzo's latest album debuted at number 6 on the Billboard charts. The TV show Shrill was just renewed for a 2nd season on Hulu. All right, last point that I want to address from this article is this concept of you cannot expect, you can't expect a person to be strong all on their own and society has to be the one that changes. Yes and no, right? On the one hand, I can understand where this person's coming from. Obviously, we want to hold people up to a higher standards and expect better from them. That said, that is not a practical thing to do. I want everyone to be great people. I want people to not rob, steal, or just generally be nuisances. But I still lock my door. And the reason for that is that as much as I want that for people, I cannot be trusted to be sure that that is what I will get from people. So, I try and make sure that I am taking as many precautions as I can. And one of them is to build up my defenses, both psychologically and physically. Physical, like I said, locked door. Psychologically, I don't put pictures of myself up on the internet where I think that trolls might find it and ridicule me. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think that will affect my self-worth too much, and I don't think I'll care all that much, but I don't know. And that's why I don't put it up there. That's also one of the reasons why I choose to say mostly anonymous. I don't give you guys information about where I live, what I do, and all those sorts of bits of information, right? I do it to protect myself. And so I want people to be better. I want to appeal to everybody's better angels, but I cannot count on that. And that's why I choose to protect myself. And that's why I think that before you can go out and say, hey, everybody needs to be better and protect my feelings, you have to first make sure that you yourself are doing everything you can to protect your feelings. You got to be your number one champion. You got to look out for number one. And is that what you want to hear? Probably not. But unfortunately, it's true. It's true in almost every aspect, right? You have to be your own advocate. I've heard that for ever. That is the best piece of advice that I can ever give to anybody. You have to be the one to speak for yourself. You have to be the one to fight for yourself. Because no matter what anybody else says, no matter what anybody else wants, you are not, no one's going to care about your circumstances as much as you are going to care about your circumstances. So I can understand where this person is coming from. And I do see what they mean. But you cannot put all of the onus on other people to be better and then just expect that that will fix your issues. And more importantly, once more, I'll mention what I said in the beginning, which is that if you really didn't have any issues to begin with, you would not be 600 pounds currently. You would not be eating yourself to the point of sickness every single night. You would not be binging. You would not have orthorexia. People turn to food the way they turn to alcohol, the way they turn to a host of different reasons. And I'm not saying that's everybody, right? But a lot of people, especially those who are on the more extreme end of the spectrum, that's why they do it. So there is a reason why they did that. And I think that ignoring that is just, it's not okay. I don't think that this person has bad intentions. They're a dietitian. They obviously want the best for their patients. I have a very big issue, especially with the dietetics community as a whole, that chooses to push the narrative of health at every size and, the fact that you can be metabolically healthy no matter what. Because unless you know what metabolic health versus actual health means, you might not understand the difference between the two. And you might very incorrectly, but understandably, come away with the understanding that it doesn't matter and that being overweight or obese is perfectly fine for my health and that I will not face any side effects. There is a reason you don't see 600-pound 80-year-olds. Most people who are 600 pounds don't live to be 80. And I understand if health is not your goal in life, then that's fine. Go forth and prosper. I'm not here to preach to you. But if health is your goal and the way that you're choosing to exercise this goal, the way that you're choosing to achieve this goal is essentially just by, doing healthy behaviors, eating vegetables and doing light exercise and, trying to take care of your mental health, but you're never actually addressing any of your weight. And you think that going forward, this will not have any ill consequences because of the information being given to you by articles like this, by dietitians like this, and by Abby Sharp, by just the community at large, then you're going to be in for a rude awakening. And I'm sure it won't happen to everybody. And I'm sure it won't happen to the Tess Holidays and the Virgie Tovars because they have got the financial means to make sure that these consequences don't catch up with them. But for average Joe Schmo, the consequences will be there for the most part. And those are the people that I'm worried about. Those are the people that I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about Virgie Tovar. She's got enough money to have other people do that for her. She's got enough money to have people help her. There's a lot of people out there who don't have those kinds of resources, and they're the people that this community, I feel, is like effing over. All right, so the mascara that I wore is this one. It's the Essence Lash Princess Mascara. It's the purple one, the False Lash Effect. I really like this mascara. I've always really liked this mascara. It's pretty much the only mascara I use. I tend to buy like a bunch of tubes whenever there's like a sale on, because they have a lot like buy two, get one free kind of, and I'll just buy like a bunch of these and I'll just stock them, and then I'll just open one up and I'll use it. It works very well, and I don't know, I've never had any real issue with it. So, and then the lipstick that I am wearing is Urban Decay's Comfort Matte Formula in the color Uptight. It's kind of like a nudie orange on me. On a lighter skin tone, it'll probably come across a lot more orangey, so that's like kind of the tube color. But on me, it comes across just as like a little bit of a nudie orange, which I really like. The black eye pencil that I used was the NYX Professional Makeup Retractable Eyeliner in the color, I don't know, Black Noir. Yeah, waterproof eye pencil in black. It's fine. It's not my favorite. My favorite is the Stila Smudge Proof one, but I'm out of that right now, so, it is what it is. Okay, now, what earrings do you think we should wear with this very black sweater? I'm gonna go for these ones. I have a couple pairs here, but I'm gonna go for the most dramatic ones. So these are the earrings that I am wearing. Let me hold them up so you guys can see them. Aren't they stunning? I absolutely love these earrings. They were a present, so I'm not quite sure where they are from. My cousins gave them to me as a gift on a pretty special occasion, so I love them. I think they look really pretty. I mean, they're real extra for this, but I don't care. I mean, I'm not going anywhere or doing anything. I might as well just fancy at home. Okay. So, in conclusion, I think that this person is well-intentioned. I think that they care, and I think that they're trying to do their best both for themselves and for other people. I just think that they're wrong. And I think they're spreading misinformation based on misinformation that they've received from other people. I think that they're not looking at the science as objectively as they should be. And I think that they're going to end up hurting people indirectly. And I don't really know how to make people understand that. Anyway, that will be it for me. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you disliked it, you can give me a thumbs down. If you have any questions about any of the products I used, you can let me know down below. I'll try and answer as best as I can. And yeah, that'll be it. Share with your friends. Let them know about my channel. Help me grow and save me from the horrors of the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Hit the notification bell on your way out if you want to know when I upload any video right away. I've got all my social medias linked down below. I've got Instagram, where it's basically just like food I'm cooking and sort of like what I'm doing. But right now I'm not doing anything or going anywhere, so it's mostly just food. I've got my Twitter, where I am a little bit toxic and a little bit petty and a little bit entertaining, I've been told. Also, I am like easiest reachable there. So if you guys have anything to say to me, that's where I am. I think my DMs should be open. So if you guys want to send me a DM, that's where you can do it. And last but not least, I've got Patreon. Think of Patreon as the tip jar for the internet. So if you like the job that I'm doing here and you want to toss a few coins in my direction, that's where you can do it. You don't have to. Please don't feel obligated, but I would really appreciate it if you did. All of your funds will go directly towards buying me another color that matches this lipstick because you guys, I'm running out. This is all the lipstick I have left and I'm really, really freaking out because do you see how beautiful that looks on my cheeks? I love it so much. Please, I can't run out. It's really stressing me out. I also want to say a special thank you to my patrons. I've got 2 of you guys. Thank you so much to Wild Rose and That British Unicorn for supporting my channel. I appreciate you two so much. And your support means more than I can say. That will be it from me. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. Peace.